Hey fans and subscribers, this is your host Joe on the Gaming for Insight channel. And in front of me on my Ayaneo 2S, I have up and running Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. The focus of this video is to share with you settings that you can tweak to extend battery life in playing this game on your Ayaneo device. There are two areas of settings that I am going to be looking at for this video. The first is ASpace 2 Beta and the second is in-game settings. So I'm going to go ahead and start with ASpace 2. And I just pulled up the overlay here by hitting the button, the specifically Ayaneo button. And you see that I'm running the AC6. This is a profile that I created for this game. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into the pencil here. And actually before I do that, let me minimize the game. And here is my AC6 profile. I'm just going to hit direction right here and you can see the overall settings for the profile. Let's start with the FPS limit. I have this set at 40. The game with the in-game settings and other corresponding settings through this video I will detail will run between 38 and 40 frames. The TDP limit, I find a suitable TDP limit is 17 for this game on the 7840 APU processor. And for power policy, I set this at saving because, again, we are trying to extend that battery life. Our fan configuration is going to be set at hardware control. This is going to revert to the BIOS preset settings for the fan temperature curve. Let me next transition to the CPU and GPU clock speeds for the APU. Let's start with the CPU clock speed. I have this set at 1400 megahertz. I did see during gameplay that the clock speed would increase to 3.3 gigahertz. Therefore, I did not further decrease the CPU clock speed. I see as a consistent baseline that the clock speed stays in the 1300 megahertz range, and am uncertain with ASpace 2 why it is the case that despite the CPU lock, the clock speed can increase to 3.3 gigahertz. So I will have to look further into that, but just as a note, that's why I did not decrease this any further. This may be an area that you want to further tweak based on what you hear and see in this video. But the GPU lock, I could be more concrete with this. The clock speed I see 1100 is suitable, 1100 megahertz. Now, in decreasing this, I did try 1000 megahertz. And what I'm finding happens with the GPU load, that's specifically the 780M, is that the load is higher than 80%. And that is not an area that I prefer, at least for the GPU load to be, because that's closer to bottlenecking. So I set this at 1100 instead, and I see that the load is staying in the 60 to 75%, and so that is slightly less than 80%. And for CPU turbo, I have that disabled. So now that we have reviewed the ASpace 2 settings, we can then go into the in-game settings. Let's go to our in-game settings. And I'm just hitting the hamburger button here. And I am going down to our graphics settings. When the game loaded, it was in full screen, and the text as well as picture, it appeared truncated, and there was a large border on the top and the bottom, a black border specifically. So I changed this to borderless window, and that seems to be working really well here. And our resolution is set at 800p despite using a 1200p display. Now our limit frame rate, that is set at 60. But because of the profile that we have created with the FPS limit and set that at 40, this is going to be dominant over the limit frame size. So the reason I did that is 30 is the lowest option. And you have seen this in my other videos where I leave this at 60 for this game. And that is set there by default. Our VSync is going to be on, and this is a 60 Hz display on the Ayaneo 2S. So that is going to align really well with keeping us at a 38 to 40 frame range there for the frame rate. And let's see, next is our settings. With quality settings, I set this to low and I set this as the default. So for quality settings detailed, I did not further edit these. and modify them, so left them at the default there. So those are our in-game settings, and with that, we can jump into some gameplay.
Arena Combat Aptitude Evaluation Program. First subject AC. Mad Stomp. Call sign. Invincible Rummy. Commencing evaluation. Combat mode.
All right, and that is going to be our video for Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon on the Ayaneo 2S and settings that you can use to extend battery life on your Ayaneo device. Now, I took a different approach with this video. I did not share as much gameplay, so let me know in the comments if you are interested in seeing more gameplay with the settings, as I'm happy to do that and make these videos longer. Though, what settings are you using on your Ayaneo device to play this game with Aespace 2 Beta? Let me know in the comments. And so with that, let me leave you now with the words of Commander Shepard from Mass Effect. I should go.